Hey pageant fans, welcome back to another episode of Tea Stands on Pageantry. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about some exciting news coming out of my home country, the Cayman Islands. So, in an online article that was published in Luke Cayman, it reported that the Miss Universe Cayman Islands Committee had acquired the Miss Earth franchise for the Cayman Islands and that they had appointed Latrice Haylock as national director. So, for those of you who aren't very familiar with the landscape of pageantry in Cayman, Latrice Haylock is a former Miss Cayman Islands contestant, and after competing in a pageant, she joined the committee and has remained heavily involved and helped to produce the pageants over the last few years. So this announcement of her being national director does not come as much of a surprise to me because of how involved she's been. And I think it's a really good look for the Miss Universe Cayman Islands Committee to utilize a past contestant in this way to really offer her this leadership opportunity. I think it just reflects really well on them, and I love to see that. I love to see that even if you aren't successful in capturing a crown, there are still ways that you can be involved in pageantry and still have opportunities come out of it. So I think that that's really cool to see, and I want to see more of that from other pageant committees. Now, after this news dropped, I got a few comments from people asking me, well, why would they go and acquire a second title when everybody knows that pageants in Cayman struggle to get contestants? That is no secret. Pageants in Cayman are just not as supported. There's not much of a pageant culture here. So from year to year, our pageants do struggle to get contestants. So I think that the reason they did this has a lot to do with another pageant, the Miss World Cayman Islands pageant. And here's why. In 2022, the Miss World Cayman Islands Committee acquired the franchise for Miss Supranational, and they sent their first runner-up, Melissa Bridgmahan, in 2023 to the Miss Supranational competition. So it's kind of like business. If your competitor is offering a service or a product that you are not offering, that you suspect might entice more customers to them, you're going to want to offer something that is the same or pretty similar to that. And the only thing that they can offer that would be on par is another title. So it makes a lot of sense that they would go ahead and get a second title because they're trying to keep up with their competitor and they're trying to level the playing field. Now, the article doesn't really say how they plan to go about appointing their first title holder, but if I had to speculate, I'm guessing that they're going to probably do something similar to what the Miss World Cayman Islands Committee is doing, which is that they're having one pageant and crowning two girls out of those pageants. But I feel like there are some logistics there that don't quite align with each other. So in regards to like the requirements for Miss Earth, like I know you have to be, a natural born female. You have to be between the ages of 18 and 26, or is it 18 and 28? But there is a cutoff, and you also can't be married and you can't have children, right? And there's also a minimum height requirement, which is 5 feet 4 inches. And as we know with Miss Universe, a lot of those things have fallen to the wayside. We've got transgenders who are now able to enter, married women, mothers. There is no age limit anymore, so anyone can enter once they are the minimum age of 18. And then when you also add in the fact that the owner of Miss Universe has previously stated that she does not want to see any other titles being given out or appointed on the same stage as the Miss Universe title, that adds a little bit of a layer of complication to me. And I'm just kind of wondering, how will they go about doing this? Maybe they will do it like how some other countries have chosen to do it, which is to have the one pageant but appoint the other title holder at a separate crowning event, or maybe later in the night at maybe an after party or something like that. So I think that might be their best bet, is to probably do something like that. I think that's what we can expect from them. But it is, to me, kind of tricky how they're gonna ensure that they at least have some girls that are eligible to enter the Miss Earth competition. especially noting now that Miss Universe has very minimal requirements for their pageant.
You guys, I completely forgot to mention that this is actually not the first time that the Cayman Islands will be competing in the Miss Earth competition. I believe back in 2010 was the last time that we had a representative at Miss Earth, and that was Miss Samantha Widmer, as you can see on my screen here. So she went to Miss Earth when it was in Vietnam back in 2010, and then before her, there was also Stephanie Aspute who went in 2006. So I think that this is really great to see Miss Earth returning to Cayman, and I think it would be really cool if they actually got Samantha to come out and crown the new Miss Earth Cayman Islands.
Now, something that strikes me as interesting about this development is the fact that they've acquired the Miss Earth franchise when we have the Miss World Cayman Islands committee whose advocacy, so their pageant has an advocacy and they promote protection of the environment. But they have the Miss Supranational title, which is interesting because I find that maybe it would have been more the pageants would have been more aligned if they were swapped, basically, like if Miss World Cayman Islands actually had Miss Earth, because they already are on a mission to promote sustainability, and Miss Universe had the Miss Supranational franchise, because the Miss Supranational franchise, the women can be up to age 32 in that competition. So I feel like that would have made things a little bit easier for both pageants. So it's really interesting to see how this works out. I also think that Miss World, in my view, is very much a conservative pageant, at least in comparison to Miss Universe. And Miss Supranational is more in alignment with Miss Universe in terms of its fashion and being more fashion forward. I'm not quite certain about Miss Earth and the styling in that pageant because I'm not very familiar with it. But I think it's really interesting that how this is all played out. And I almost feel like they would have been much more aligned if Miss World had Miss Earth and Miss Universe had Miss Supranational. And finally, the last thing I want to say about this is that I'm really, really hoping that these pageants are not getting their hopes up and thinking that because they're giving away a second title, that it means that they will see an increase in persons wanting to participate in the pageant or audience members coming out to watch the final show, because I really don't think that that is going to translate. I think that what is going to increase contestant numbers and what is going to increase your audience is ensuring that you are putting on a memorable experience for both parties. Contestants want a fun, exciting, unforgettable, positive, uplifting, and empowering experience through the pageant journey. And the audience, they just simply want to be entertained. You know what I mean? So if y'all are putting on these shows and they're not entertaining, then people are not going to come out the way that you want them to. They're not going to become fans. And that's really what you should be striving for, is to create pageant fans of your pageant, of your system, of your brand, so that it doesn't matter how many contestants are in there, who is in there, they're coming out to support the pageant because they just love it. And that's what I think these pageant committees should try to focus on if they're not doing so, because I think that that's going to make the biggest difference. All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode. Until next time, have a great week.